This is the last point, and this point is more flavored towards resources and time to do data analyst work. Data analysts, they do a lot of, extraction of data. They create data sources. They have to save. They have to upload, download, do it again. And I'm going to talk about some of the benchmarks of Power BI versus Tableau. And for this example, I'm using a table with 29 million records. So not too big, not too small. It's a decent size. Keep in mind that the numbers I'm going to be showing, if your data sets are much smaller, it's kind of proportional in a way. And if they're much larger, it's almost kind of proportional in a way. So, and actually my next slide will give more details about data sizes. But anyhow, this is my data set, 29 million records. And first thing is just extracting data out of this SQL Server database. It's actually a table in SQL Server that I extracted into Power BI and into Tableau. And Power BI took about 40 minutes, while Tableau took about 10.8 minutes. So pretty much both of them not too different. So data extraction is not a big deal. Now, how much memory was used by the application to do the job? There was huge differences. With Power BI, it ranged from 30 gigs to 84 gigs. It was not constant. Sometimes the data extraction would take 30, do it again is like 50, do it again it goes to 45, do it again it goes to 84. It was kind of a little random, but it was varying all over the place. While Tableau, it was 3 gigabytes. That's 90% less. Actually, I could run this extract on a fairly underpowered machine. With Power BI, I would have to use 128 gigs of RAM. Otherwise, sometimes it would fail. So right there, Power BI requires a lot more RAM to extract the data. Once you extract, and let's say you have to save the file locally to do manipulation and start to tweak the data source, the size of the package file in Power BI is this, and in Tableau is 70% smaller. So if you do a lot of these things and you have to back up and do savings and whatnot, this starts to add up. It's significantly more size using Power BI to save the data extracted. It's the same amount of data, it uses a lot more space to save it. Now, quite often when you're doing these things, you have to upload this workbook or this data source to a web portal. Power BI would be the Power BI service. With Tableau, could be their service or could be an on-site web server. Anyhow, I was using an upload and download speed of fairly fast, 400 megabytes, and just because of the size of the files, the upload of Power BI versus Tableau was 80% faster, so much faster to get the job done. Now, in real life, sometimes what happens? People travel, and when they travel, quite often they don't have a lot of good internet connection. The same upload speed at a hotel with 5 megs, which is kind of decent, it takes 25 minutes versus 4 minutes. I was actually in this situation when I was preparing this presentation to a live speaking session a few weeks ago, and I was pulling my hair out because I had to test these things at the hotel, and it was incredibly frustrating to wait with Power BI because it was so much slower. So real life, these things sometimes it's so freaking frustrating, and it takes so much time. How about to download the same data down? That I uploaded to the web. Now tomorrow I go back. I need to download to do some other changes. Tableau is the same thing, 0.4 up and down, same speed. I'm using a super fast internet connection. Power BI, for some reason, and I think Microsoft should take a close look at this. We couldn't figure out what was going on, but it would take about 8 minutes for apparently to download the file. I mean, we could see the data traction through the internet coming through at the right speed and got everything coming in. But once it got to a point where we would click, I think it was save, it would take an extra about almost 10 minutes to do something until the file actually became available on the hard drive. So extremely frustrating to wait to download something which would take about the same time. Proof that Tableau is 90% faster. So if anyone knows what we're missing here, please let us know. Otherwise, Microsoft, check it out because this doesn't seem normal at all. It should be the same speed up and same speed down as long as you have the same pipeline speed. Change data model. As a business analyst is creating a data source and creating hierarchies and sorting different ways, hierarchies and dragging, dropping. Tableau is point and click, just drag and drop, and there you go. It takes 0 seconds to do the changes. In Power BI, especially when you're working with hierarchies, the first 2-3 members you drag and drop into it is 0 time. But when you have a lot of data, like in this case, the more members or dimensions you drag into a hierarchy, it starts to just crunch. And sometimes, it was taking a lot of time. I mean, 50 seconds, 80 seconds, 100 seconds, you drag and drop, you gotta wait. And with Tableau, it was nothing, 0 time, so much more efficient. Finally, saving, when you're doing this business analyst and you're maintaining your data source, you make changes, you save, you make changes, you save, you make changes, you save. The way that Power BI works, at least when you are maintaining the data source locally on the hard drive, every time you save the whole package file. So because we have a huge file, every time you click save, you gotta wait a lot of seconds until it's saved. Tableau actually splits the data source from the metadata. So when you're saving the changes to your data modeling is instantaneous. There's no time. So overall, much more efficient. This kind of work does apply to your business. It depends. Many of our clients, they have only 1, 2, 3, 4 data sources that they only maintain, make changes, once, twice, a few times per year. If that's your case and you don't have a lot of data, this is not going to be a big deal. But companies that have a lot of data, or in order they have to do a lot of maintenance on the data sources, these metrics in the long run are going to take a lot of time and a lot of resources. The RAM, it's amazing how much more RAM you have to use and how much more time it takes to do things that in Tableau overall is so much faster. This slide here is just showing in detail the data extraction benchmark that was just covered. So if you want, I recommend you take a screenshot and look in details. We have the source table, the size of the fields, how they look in Power BI and Tableau, the hierarchies, how much records, how many invoice numbers, how much customers, a lot of details here clearly described. Feel free to look in more detail or send us an email that we can explain how this test was performed.